everybody, and welcome to another episode of Boundless. I'm Citizens with ExedotCute Gaming, and today we are actually going to be doing a tutorial. As I've mentioned before, I belong to a gaming group called the Twisted Crew Gaming, and we share information on the games that we all play and mods. And one of the things that we ended up doing for Boundless and for the town that we built as a community is we created a spreadsheet, and part of that spreadsheet is dealing with farming. And farming can be really frustrating in the game if you don't know really what you're dealing with. It's very mathematical. It's not as RNG as it is initially believed to be. So I'm going to break down this portion of the spreadsheet for everybody, not just for my community, but for you guys too. I'm going to put a link below in the description to the spreadsheet. It's the community spreadsheet, so you guys can follow along as you're learning or use it however you see fit. But let's get into it. Okay, so let's start out with the first thing first. So the spreadsheet, the first thing I have listed is the rice. So how the spreadsheet works is you see the name of the crop, and then its base value. And this is if you don't do anything with it that remotely influences it. Next I have blank spots that you can fill in. And then later I should have configurations in a image file off to the side here, so you can just mimic that. Otherwise this kind of functions as a tutorial. I have seed because if you want to just grow seeds in case you just don't have enough for the size farm that you're going to make, this will let you memorize what number values you got and you can replicate later. The crop one, same principle. When you get a really good percentage that you want to make sure you don't forget what that is, that's where you can list it. Configuration as well. Sustain. Okay, sustain is the hardest one to get, and I've seen a lot of people fight with this. Sustain is when, no matter what, when you harvest your crop, you're going to get one seed at least to be able to replant, and then hopefully an abundance of crop, getting the most out of each plant location that you have in your farm. And testing is set up so that you can see how your block numbers influence, and then you can log it in your respective category. So rice, we're going to start out, I'm going to get rid of these and start explaining this. So rice has a couple of different modifiers that affect it. So if it's not submerged, you're going to get 100% crop growth out of it, but 0 for your seeds. But without it being submerged, it slows the growth. So I highly recommend you submerging your rice. And that's in real life too, oddly enough. Next is in-tilled clay. That's if you're wanting to go for a seed bonus of only 10%. This allows you to kind of muck around with getting the values where you want it. But if you really want to get seeds, you're going to want to go for your compact clay. So we're going to put a point in there because we're going to shoot for seed production first. You see how it changed the numbers over here to 75%, -80? The game will never show you -80 in the crop. It will show you 0. But that's the back end numbers, what the game does with it. Next, you're going to want it near water. Not just submerged, but you're going to want it near it too. So let's pop a 4 in there. And now we're up to 85% with a -60 crop. And then near compact clay, 8 blocks of it is the max that it'll influence. And I'll give you 115% seed with a 0 crop. Now in game, crop will be your first number and seed will be your second number. I'm sorry, it's just the way I set this up. Unfortunately, it caused the numbers to be flipped. But as long as you hold that in mind when you're transmitting the numbers into game, you should be okay. So this is what we're shooting for, 115% seed, because anything else I believe will drop you too low, and you want max seed production as possible when you're looking to increase your seed inventory. So that's what we got. If it's not submerged, you'll get that number. Not bad, you get a little bit of crop out of it. 40% chance if you're lucky. So let's go look at how I designed the structure for the actual physical farm in-game. Bear in mind we're looking for 115% in the seeds. Okay, here we are. Now you see it's off the ground. Now you can build this however you want, but we built it off the ground in order to get a tiered effect, so we get water flow. And you see I'm using compact clay, like the little spreadsheet told us to. And you see seeds while they're submerged, crop of 0, seed percentage of 115. So when it's ready and it says it's mature, you'll get at least that. And you get nice water flow. Okay? Now I'll show you the nitty-gritty behind it. I put a trap door here, made it solid, so we can block the water off so it's no longer submerged. I don't know who came up with that, but it's something that the one showed me when he showed me his rice farm. So I've made sure to implement that neat little trick so you guys can use it too. So without the water flow, you'll see the crop yield is 100% and your seed yield is 115. So you're going to at least get one crop per plant and potentially 2 seeds. Alright? In compact clay. So why is it still getting water influence? Well, first off, you got water right here beside it. And then what you don't see, and I cut away to a slab here, full blocks here, I made a channel using a stone chisel to put water that will never leave right beside the plant growth. Now the water block, what it'll do is it'll influence up to 3 blocks away, which is the full width of the plotting. So you'll always get the influence. And it only needs 4. So you've got, from an angle here, you've got 1, 2, 3. And it's covering both directions. So your plants should, in theory, always get enough water to give you those values. So let's move on. Alright, so now we're back to trying to figure out what will give us the most crop. I've got a design set up, but it looks like some of these numbers might be a bit off. So the way I set it up, it's going to give us 100 in seed, 120 in crop, right? In theory. That's not what I ended up with. I ended up with something a little bit better. And it also functions as your sustainable. So let's take a peek at what I did in-game versus what it is showing us here. 1, they're submerged. 1 in tilled clay. 4 near water. And 8 near compact clay. Sorry, I know it's a little dark. Game time changed. So same basic setup. Right? So on the sides I still have compact clay, which is where we're getting our compact clay influence. Alright. Let's go up top. Got the submersion going. Bricks are just to make sure we don't flood out the area. And underneath, in the compacted clay, I have that channel for the permanent water, so it gets that influence even when we undo the submerging. So, looking in it right now, we're getting 100% and 100%. That's not too shabby. Very sustainable, gives you suffice. Now, let's take away this immersion. 200 crop, 100 seed. That's double the crop, and you're guaranteed to get at least a seed for replanting purposes. Say not too shabby. Could be worse. So that'll cover all of our rice. Let's move on. Okay, now I'm going to show you the wheat one. And the wheat one's base is 50 for seed percentage and 60 for crop. So we're aiming towards our seed first. So our best percentage comes from compact silt. Alright, so let's put a 1 in there. Each plant will be placed in that. It needs 4 blocks worth of water to get that bonus of each block providing it. So right now we're looking at 100% seed, 60% crop. So we need to add mud to get it a little bit more. Alright. So we're looking at 110 and 100. That's sustainable, but if you want to be able to get more seed, this is the route to go. So what I like to do is, before I add water, I like to pull the numbers. I get rid of the water. That way when I'm working with lava later on, I'm not burning my tootsies when I make a mistake or have to recalibrate the setup. So without water influence, I'm looking for 100% seed and 60 crop. That's how you know you have your influence blocks in place. So when you add your fluids, you hit your marker. But I have already set up a design, and I'll show you what it is. Okay, so this is the setup, and I wanted to show you what I meant by influence. So on this side, we have the mud set up, gleam as spacer blocks. You can put more mud there if you want, or if you want to have some light, ambient light at night, you can throw gleam in. The gleam doesn't do anything for it, not the above ground plants. However, the underground plants, it will absolutely help. So this is what we ended up with if we get all the proper influences. 100% crop, 110. Now, notice I didn't put water on the other side. This is to show you how the influence works. So this block is here. 1, 2, 3. See how the third one didn't get its full influence? So now I'm going to show you what it's like, what it does. Just add the water in. I like to do each one stagnant water instead of flow. Personal preference. Now look at that. They're all influenced. Now the pattern I'm showing you, it's so that you can extend on. You're not being pigeon-toed into 3x3s. So as long as you continue this pattern, you're good. You can also use this to function as the other side for another row worth. Just by adding in your compacted silty, that's clay, but you know what I mean. You just replicate it, carrying it on. Do another set of 3, and then add the exact same design to the other side and on the edge. And you'll get full influence all the way down. Okay, so now our goal is to get the max crop we can out of this. So we're definitely going to be putting it in the tilled silty this time, in order to get that 20% bonus and not the negative 40. We're going to need 4 things of water. Alright. 8 things of near tilled. Now the respective blocks near it that also have plants count towards that. So be mindful of that as well when you're setting up your farm. So that's going to influence it with this. Mud. We need near 4 blocks of mud to get that 10% bonus there. Alright. Let's remove the water so we can test to see if our design is the way we need it to be to get that number that we want. So we need 140 in crop and 90 in seed. Alright, it looks like we got it. So let's add our water and see what we ended up with. And the pattern didn't change. We still got gleam where it was with the seed, and we still have the mud where it was. The only thing that we changed was we got rid of the compacted and switched over to regular silty, and then used our metal hand tiller in order to make it tilled soil. Now you can make a wood one too if you're not ready to make metal tools. Let's grab our water blocks and add it in and see how it affects the plants. Look at that! 180% crop and 100% yield on your seeds. Looks like it's a pretty sustainable one too. Alright, now we're going to work on the oat. So, base 80 for seed percentage, crop is 70, and we're going to be shooting toward our seed. So we're going to look at the one that gives us the highest percentage, and we're going to plant them in compact PD. Right? So now it's wanting us to do these other ones, but problem is nothing else contributes to seed, which is a real bummer. So you think, oh no, I can't do anything else. Absolutely not. The way we're going to set this up is you're going to at least get a crop from it. Let's guarantee that. So get an influence of 4 from your water, and let's go ahead and get at least the mud. Till's going to be a lot harder to do, so let's at least get 100%. So your setup is going to look something like this. So let's remove the water so we know what we can do on a dry run. And we're going to be looking for 60 in crop and 120 in seed. Alright, so this is what we got. We indeed got it. If you notice, it's not much different than the wheat. It's because it's not. A lot of the above ground plants follow kind of the same format. So you can tinker around with it and do single row or double row, but just be mindful of doing dry runs. Dry runs keep you from having to use your liquid breaker as often, and running into mishaps that may break your plant. Ooh, look at that little guy. He's sprouted up. He is happy. Alright, so let's add our water and see what it does. Alright, looks like we got 100% crop and 120% seed yield. So you'll get your bonus seed, but you're guaranteed to get at least a crop out of it. Let's move on. Alright, so now we're going to look for our crops. We want high volume of crop. So we're definitely going to utilize the tilled PD. And then 4 blocks of water influence. 8 of near tilled, because it's going to be planted in till. It's going to get that value. And then we're going to want some bud near it. And that should give us 220 crop and 100% seed. So that's like the best you can get in sustainable as well. So we're going to skip the sustainable and just show you guys this particular setup. Okay, and there you have it. Pretty much just like the seed one, only we just switched out what it was planted in, and you're getting a sustainable crop and seed yield. And plenty of light at night apparently, because I keep filming at night. Alright, let's move on. Alright, so now we are working on our tubers, or our yams, whatever you want to call them. So we're going to start with the base one first, one you can find pretty much on any tier 1 planet. And we're going to look at increasing the seed. So to get our seed, we're going to need to put it in the tilled silty. Okay. And looks like the only other influence that I'm aware of is mold. Now they recently added near mold covered trellis to the tooltip. I am not sure what the numbers are at the moment, but much like the regular mold, I just don't know the percentage of it. So we're not terribly worried about that right now. We'll go with the base stuff that's easy to find no matter how much experience you have or what you've got in inventory. It's easy to get mold. There's plenty of farms that are through the network systems, whether it be Iconic or the Portal Seekers, Ultima. Someone has a farm that you can just go and get what little bit you need. So we obviously don't need sand because icky. And we're going to do tilled because that's what we're planning in. And we're going to use those numbers to do a dry run. Now mind you, we're going to still add water because that's a horrible crop growth. Like, try to get a little bit of something out of it, right? So this will at least give you 88% chance, at least according to the data I have. I do need to look at doing individual block influences again after the update when they added new blocks to see what might have gotten reconfigured back-end wise that they didn't release. So let's remove the water and let's look for a dry run of 110 and 8. 8 crop, 110 seed. And it looks like we got it. It's hard to see, but there it is. Here's our tilled silty. Put gleam in our blank spots and chiseled the mold and the gleam into half so we can put water in. And let's drop our water and see what it does. And there you have it. We have our 88. Not perfect, but at least give you a chance of getting something. And you got your 110 seed. Alright, so now we're going to look for our crop growth. So we're going to plant it in silty. Get that 20%. We're going to make sure we got 4 blocks of water around it, as usual. Of course, it's going to get the 8 block influence because we're planting in it. And now we're going to switch it up. We're going to put it sand nearby. And you can get 3 blocks max worth of influence with that. So everything else, the mold is going to subtract from your crop growth. So we're not going to use any of that. And what we should end up with is 238% crop and 70% seed. Horrible seed return, but that's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for crop. So if you really want to maximize like your extra that you got laying around that you don't worry about like sustainable aspects of it, this is the number you're going to go for. So let's remove the water so we can get a dry run, make sure our format's good. So we're going to be looking for 70 seed, 158% crop. Alright, and that looks like what we managed to get. And this is the pattern. And again, all of my patterns are based off of open end so that it's repeatable. So you can make it the field as long as you want it to and then cap it off with the same design. Of course, you're going to have to space it out so you end up capping off the exact same way as you started. If you don't, then you're going to have to do some finagling at the end of it. And dry runs are how you adjust for that. So if you know what your dry run is going to be like, you know what to look for. So you know if your end is going to be a little wonky. Alright. So let's add water and see what we got going on here. Now you can use a titanium chisel to take that corner one off to add it to that if you want to be consistent. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. Also, you notice that I use a half block. I do that for a reason, so I can pass over it and not dip down into water or lava, because we will end up using lava. Alright, so there we have it. 238 crop and 70% seed. I speak. Anyway, so there you go. Alright, so now what we're looking for is sustainable. And this one's gonna blow your mind. You ever heard the phrase, less is more? Well, it's accurate with this. So we have to plant it in something. So let's plant it in our silty. And we know it's gonna influence the block, so let's add the 8 there. And then we're just gonna add water. But Sin, what happened to all the other influence? What about the sand? Well, you see that awesome little negative there? Yeah, we don't want that. But what we do want is 100% seed and crop growth. So, we're going to roll with this. Remove our water to do a dry run. We're looking for 100% seed, 128 crop. So let's take a look. And here we have it. 128 crop and 100% seed. All I did was use the brick that I was using earlier and created the channel. And let's add the water. And there we have it. 208 crop yield. That means you guaranteed 2 with a potential of 3. So you're always going to get back your seed as well because we got 100%. How about that? Sometimes less is more. Okay, so now we're going to be doing the waxy tuber plant, or yam, whatever. So this one we're going to do tilled clay, and we're looking for seeds this time. We're going to do obviously 8 because it's going to be tilled in it, and we're going to put it near some tangle, and we're going to put a little water near it just to get that seed bonus up. So we're only at 100. So there we go. So that's what we're going to get. But let's take the water out so we can get a dry run, make sure all of our placement of our influence blocks are good. Okay. So we're looking for 8 crop, 100% seed. And there we have it. Hard to see, but it's 8 crop, 100% seed. And this is the design. You start in the middle of your 3rd row, tangle, filler block. I use gleam, and then 2 filler, 2 filler, and repeat. Okay? Let's add water and see what we got. Alright, so we got 110% seed, only 68 crop percent, but that wasn't the goal. So this is what we got. Now we're going to look at getting our crop setup done. Tilled clay, we have no other options. Causes 8 blocks worth of influence. We're going to want water for the crop. And then we're going to switch things over to ash because it gives us a bonus. It's going to hurt our seed, but it's going to give us our bonus. Alright, so we're looking at 218% crop and 70 on the seed. 70 bonus on the seed. Okay. I speak gibberish, just so you guys know. Absolute gibberish. Okay. Let's move on and take out our water so we can get a dry run. And what we're going to want to find is 158% crop and 60% seed. Alright, and that's what we got. For the most part. It looks like there's a little wonkiness right there. Alright, and that's good. We want to see that. That means something isn't lined up well. So now we want to make an adjustment. So it's right here at the end where we're seeing that hiccup. So let's recalibrate. What can we do? Well, let's try this. Let's remove that ash from this side. Grab our ash, pop that in, pop it in there, and see what happens. It fixed it, so we'll double up. Move the gleam, move that ash out of the way, and shift. So it's 2 and 2. And put my filler block back into play. Alright. Create our channel using our stone chisel for the water. There we go. No weird hiccups. And let's add our water in and see what kind of results we get. $218 with 70% crop. I mean, 70% seed. Blah, 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 blah. Alright, so there we have it. And this time we're looking for sustainable. We're going to have to put it in clay. And definitely going to have some water. And because we're putting it in the tilled clay, it gets the near tilled. So that's going to give us 100% seed with 188 crop. Now this is why I'm only doing this. We're going to less is more. If we add 1 ash, it drops our seed too low. If we add even 1 tangle, it drops our crop, but increases our seed. But we don't need extra seed. What we're looking for is 100% seed, ample amount of crop, right? So let's get rid of that. If we tinker with adding 1 ash, adding 1 tangle, we start seeing some number fluctuations, but it never brings us back to 100% crop and seed. See what I mean? So even if we somehow manage to just wedge it all in there, we're still kind of going to be hurting on one or the other. So less is more. So we're looking for that as our result. Dry run by removing the water. We're looking for 90 and 128. The 128 will be first because it's the crop, and 90 will be the secondary number, which is the seed. Alright, this is what we ended up with. And all I did was remove the ash and filled it in with another blank block, which is just my green brick. Right. Let's add water. Alright, there you go. 188% crop with 100% yield in seeds. So this will make it a sustainable crop for you. Okay, so we're now on the exotic tuber plant, and we're going to look for the seed setup. And this plant is like a little goth plant. Everything that I tend to put around it is black or white or gray, because it's a little purple plant. And if you've watched any of my other Boundless stuff, you know that I'm a big fan of that color combo. So we're going to be using tilled peaty. Each of them are going to be planted in it, so obviously it's going to be near the 8. And we're going to use some water to get that 3% bonus. And this time we're going to use dark glass. So 4 blocks worth of influence. will give us 110% seed. Now I know that's not a lot. You're going to end up with just a seed back most of the time, but something is always better than nothing. So we'll roll with this. We'll do a dry run without the water. And we're looking for 8 crop, 100% seed. And it looks like what we got. 8 crop, 100% seed. And this is the setup. And let's add water. See what we ended up with. There you go. Just a reminder, we leave it open-ended so that you can extend it past. So you know that this is a continuous design, that you can adjust the size of your farm plot as big or as little as you need. Now we're going to look for crop. So 1 tilled for water. Ooh, not 44. For water. 8 near tilled, and then this time we're going to go with the thorns. So 3 blocks worth of influence. And that will give you 70% seed, 198 crop. When we remove water, we should have 60, 158. And that's what we ended up with. Now let's add our water. Oh, notice something? Thorn doesn't stop water. It'll also be broken by lava, just FYI. So, adding it, it just passes right through. That also explains why I put these there. Alright. And it looks like we got our goal. And just for the giggles of it, I'm going to remove the block so you can see. Flooding all the water. But it doesn't hurt the plant any. This time we're looking for sustainable. So we're obviously going to plant it in the PD. 4 water, 8 influence. And here we're back to the rule of less is more. So you see we've already achieved the 100% seed. Crop yield, 168. If we try to increase the crop yield, we're going to lose in our seed. Same as before. You start tinkering around with the numbers of the influence blocks, and you don't really get ahead. So you're better off just not even messing with it and letting it run all natural. And we ended up with 128 in crop, 90 in seed, without water. So let's add our water. Alright, there you have it. 100% seed, and we got 168 crop yield out of it. So let's move on. We are going to get into the Kranut plant. This guy has really weird taste in what he needs. We're going to attempt to get a high seed volume for this round. So you notice it doesn't have anything about what it's planted in, so it's irrelevant. But best bet, make sure it's soil so you can till it. Alright? Because you want to get that 8 block influence. Then you want water to get the seed bonus. Then we want the seed bonus from the amber. And if you don't know how to get amber, Boundless crafting's a good resource, but you're going to use primordial liquid, or resin. I think it's primordial resin. And you're going to use a solidifying totem that's been forged in the Centriforge. And you're going to smack that bad boy, and it's going to solidify into amber. Next, you're going to want to get Copper is going to hurt it, so we're going to go with compact iron. Now, if you only have copper and you're trying to do this, and you happen to have a chisel with the transmorphation, I'm trying to use a big word and I probably shouldn't. Anyways, the imbuement that allows you to transmute the block into something else. If you have one that is a gemstone chisel, you can change up to gemstones. But otherwise, I highly recommend just getting a titanium one. If you can't make it yourself, there's plenty out there in shops. The Gosha Mall usually has them on sale for a decent price. And the Golden Fist, can't remember which planet it's on, but the Golden Fist usually has really reasonable prices on all of their center forge infused tools and weapons. So otherwise, just collect a bunch of iron. Angel 1, the planet that we are located on, does have that in a decent abundance. Alright, so this is our numbers. 40, 110. Let's remove the water so we can get a dry run. Alright, so we're looking for 25 and 95. And it looks like what we got. Now, I wanted you guys to notice when I said just make sure it's tilled soil. This is peaty, silt, and clay. And notice it does not change at all. Changes nothing. Zero. Nada. Alright. So let's chisel this out so we can add our water and see how it's going to behave. Also, while I'm doing this, note the pattern. Not even. I hope you're not a big OCD person about symmetry, because there is no symmetry once you get into the more advanced plants. You're going to have to work with whatever it wants to do. A lot of times when I set up my garden, I will put decorative blocks along the top of it just to kind of obfuscate the fact that it is weird blocks, weird colors. It gives a glow because of the lava, and it messes with the color tone for the rest of the build. You know, any number of reasons. You can cover these blocks. It's not going to affect your plant unless it has gleam as an influencer. And then you're going to have to make sure that whatever you cover it with, you also incorporate a little bit of gleam to give it the influence again. But we'll cover that in a bit. So for now, you've got a single and double, double amber, double iron, single amber, and then it'll be double iron. Double iron, double amber, double iron. It's going to be a lot of tinkering around, so a dry run will be important, but just know that it's going to be that similar pattern all the way through. Double, double, single, double, double, single, double. So plan your plot according to that pattern and you should be fine. If not, you know, it's okay to pull it up and try again. That's why we do a dry run. Less wear and tear on your liquid breaker. Alright, so let's get the water in and see what this bad boy does. Alright, so we did it. I got 110% seed with 40 crop. Now we're going to be looking for our crop. So, water for the crop bonus, amber for the crop bonus. It's got to be in tilled soil, so we get that in a little bit of extra seed influence. I mean, and what else you got to plant it in, right? Then, we're going to use copper this time instead of iron. But, I want you to know something. Right here, you notice both of them are a 4, and the amber amount didn't change? So, we're not going to pull up the iron. We're just going to chisel that and change that over to copper. And we should end up with 20 per seed, 240% per crop. And we got just that. I literally just went around with this little transformation tool and just popped the copper over from the iron. But we still ended up with exactly what we needed. So when you're ready to transition from growing seeds over to just growing crop, easy peasy. Sustain is just going to be the soil we already had. We're going to switch it up a little bit, and we are going to get rid of our metals. It's just going to be water, amber, and whatever we tilled it in. Planted it in, that is tilled. Let me rephrase that. So as you saw with the original example of the Kranut, I have one row of each type, so you can see that it truly doesn't influence it. And we should end up with 100% seed and 160 crop. Alright, let's remove the water for a dry run. Should be 85 and 145. And it absolutely is. Alright, let's add our water. Squeak noise that the amber makes is kind of unnerving. Alright. Yay! 160% and 100 in the seed. So there's our sustainable. Alright, now we are down to the starberries. We're looking for seed maximization, so we're going to use waxy leaves for planting. Air blocks are squirrely, so anytime you're dealing with these crops, what they're planted in takes up one of those blocks, one of those air blocks. And then everything on the same level as the foliage also is counted as an air block, and anything below it is considered an air block. So be mindful of that when you start setting up your farming, your plotting, because it's going to start tinkering. It's going to start messing with your numbers. Now the percentage of the seed changes are pretty low, but we're looking for maximization here. So let's put 16 there. And the ancient timber is not going to help us any, so we're going to leave that blank, and we're going to look at mold, adding a 2%. So let's maximize that out. So what we want is 64 crop and 112 seed. So this is what I came up with. It's very linear, it's very repeatable. So we've got mold here, and then we got the leaves, starberries planted, and as you can see, we're getting exactly what we were aiming at. Mold again, offset, another bit of foliage, and some more starberries. And we just start going down the line. The mold, foliage, mold, foliage, mold, foliage is your core. And every mold offset to the side and do foliage for your next starberry. Now we're looking at getting our crop value up. Same thing, waxy leaves, needing to maximize our air around it, and we're going to do 2 ancient timbers. And we should end up with 66% seed and 204 crop. That's what we got. And all I did was remove the mold and replace it with the timber. Let's see what it does with this. Does it affect it? Yep. Maybe? No. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't seem to change anything, which is really, really odd. But I guess it's because it's already taking up that slot. That's so weird.
That's really good to know. Yeah, not a bit of influence change. So, for those that like to use this stuff for designs, basically make little trees. Cool. Let's move on. Now, sustainable is pretty straightforward. Obviously, we're not going to use any influence in blocks. So at this point, we're just looking for 106 and 184. And that's what we got. And you notice I added another bit here, because it seems like you can go as wide as you want as long as you leave that one open gap. So go nuts. And it's sustainable, so no jumping through unnecessary hoops. Alright, now we're at the glossy strawberry vine seeds. So we're going to put it in exotic foliage, and I don't know if this is correct or not, but messing around with the pattern, I'm pretty sure it is. I think it needs a lot more air than the regular Starberry, so we'll put 18. And we're going to try to get it as near 4 tangle as we can. And that'll give us 110% seed with 44% crop. So pardon the rain. Again, Angel 1's got some very interesting weather patterns. This is what I was able to come up with. We hit our goal, but this is as good as it gets. I've tried making it double the width. I've tried doing like rectangle designs, various others. This is the only pattern that stays consistent and only linear, so only going this way. You cannot add on to it going this way. It messes it up. You end up with seed yield of like 109 or 108. This will give you your max. So for the crop yield, we're going to do exotic foliage as before, 18 air, and then we're going to use twisted timber instead of the tangle. And it should get us 58 seed, 194 crop. Again, we're going for crop, not necessary sustainability. So it looks like the pattern got flipped on its head. So instead of the tangle being in the 4 corners and one piece of foliage in the middle with the seed in it, we are now looking at the 4 corners being touched by the foliage and the wood being in the center. But we did reach our goal. So now let's try to get some sustainable. This time around, we're looking for sustainable. So 1 here, 18 here, and then looks like we're going to do 1 tangle. That'll put us at 101 in seeds and 134 in crop. A little hard to see, so I bust out the gleam. This is the design I ended up with. As you can see, each one hits the mark. It's not a consistent flow. There is gap. But if you put anything in this gap here, it ends up influencing the blocks, causing it to drop a little bit. Now it's still sustainable in the drop, but you don't get quite the same percentages maximized. So it's completely up to you. Part of the point of this tutorial was to show you how to use the spreadsheet and finagle the numbers to your desire. This is just the max that I was able to produce in the pattern I was able to produce. So by all means, tinker at will. Okay, so I messed around with it a bit because the last bit of Starberry was really difficult. And our goal was to go after seeds this time around for the juicy Starberry. And it gives you the max of being able to have 20 air influence, but it's so unreasonable. The sheer volume of air needed and to get any kind of influence from the thorns, I was only able to achieve it using the lush foliage that we planted it in, 18 blocks worth of air and 6 thorns, but in a very specific pattern with a lot of gapping. So if you plan on using the juicy starberries for anything, get prepared to take up a lot of real estate. So it's going to give you 106 in seed and only 16% in the crop. And the goal is to go after seed, so let me show you what we ended up with. So this is what I ended up with. I'm sure you can make it look really pretty if you didn't have black thorns, but being the person that I am, black is what I have. So, as you can see, 16% crop, 106 seed yield. So, it's repeatable in how I set it up. So, all we'll end up doing is drop another there. Make sure it's the right type, right? Okay. So we're going to add a thorn. I'm going to add another and another, and then add one off. Cut this middle one out. Add another leaf. Transmute it over. Thorn, 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 thorn. Cut that bit out. Plant the seed. See? It is repeatable. It's just not that pretty, and it takes a whole lot of real estate up. So be prepared for that if you're needing to grow seeds. Okay, so now we're to the crops. And again, off camera, I tinkered around with the design, and it's like repeatable, but it's frustrating, and it is a space hog. So 1 foliage, 20 air, 3 lustrous timber will give us 30 seed and 185 crop. And this is what I came up with. It is repeatable, but man, is it going to be a space hog. If you're lucky, you'll get 2 crop out of it, but it's not sustainable. It's a big space hog. It's honestly not worth it unless you're doing it just to clear off extra inventory that you don't need. We managed to figure out that 4 thorns, no timber, will give us 102 seed percentage with the 60% crop percentage. And the design is repeatable but frustrating. And again, space hog. So as you can see, it is repeatable, but again, space hog. 102, 102, 102, 102. So this is sustainable, but your crop percentage is negligible at best. You can alternate if you want to make it look stylish or keep it consistent which one has the extra nodules sticking off of it. But the juicy starberries are definitely going to make you work for it. If you come up with a different design, be my guest, post it in the comments below. I'm always curious to see different designs. Tell me what percentages you managed to get, which blocks you used, how many of them, what kind of footing you used. You know, give us details. Let us know. I know I'm not the only one struggling with certain crops. Some I'm better at figuring out than others. The juicy starberry and the glossy starberry seems to be my worst ones. Alright, so now we're at combustion fraction. And this is, we're getting into the stuff that people struggle with the most. So what we're going to go for first is the seeds, obviously. and we're going to use Deco Refined Gravel, 4 pieces of lava, and Near Ancient Corruption, because it's the only one that gives seed bonus. It hurts your crop, but it gives you seed. And we're going to max it, and it's the only way you're going to get 110% seed, but it will absolutely decimate your crop. So let's remove our fluids so we don't have to tinker around with that, because lava hurts. And what we're going to be looking for in our dry run is 90% seed, and it says negative, but it's 0. Alright, so we got that. 0 crop, 90% seed, and this is the pattern. Not the prettiest thing in the world, but it's balanced. But it's not going to be symmetrical here soon, once we get into the nitty-gritty of sustainable. So let's grab our lava and drop this in here. Now be careful, make sure you're targeting the right spot, otherwise you'll burn up your crop. Suggestion, if you're not really sure how good you are at placing it, just pull your crop up so you don't burn up your seeds. Alright, there you have it. 110% all the way across. Now, you're wondering why I put Gleam in. It's not just a filler block for these. Notice how it only has 3 days to grow? Trust me, you want that. The Gleam, what it does is function as a light source. Since these can only grow underground, it isn't sped up by sunlight. So the Gleam functions as that. If you try to put it in sunlight, they won't grow at all. Let me show you an example. I'll go ahead and break this up. My liquid breaker out here. And we're just going to be focusing on the time frame. The lava doesn't affect that. See, it still shows 3 days. So I'll remove the Gleam and show you what it does to it. 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks. Close you get to the decorative Gleam in the guild hall, where I'm doing my samples at, the lower it is. So you're getting Gleam from the signs over there. But yeah, definitely want to have Gleam as part of your edging. Alright, next on our list is creating a crop setup for it to maximize your crop growth. We're going to use the gravel, because no choice. Pour lava, and then we're going to focus on the compact combustion particle, and that should give us 30 seed and 220 crop. So dry run, it will give us 10% and 180%, or flip it as it is in game, 180 and 10. And that appears to be what we got. Oh, nope. Right there at the end. You see that? Showing me 160 and 30. Wonder why that is. Everything else looks good, so why the ends? That's because the pattern is a little different with these compared to that of other crops. So even though the end cap is really nice, looks good, you get all the coverage you need, this middle block right here plays effect in that. So how we compensate for that is we're going to introduce a double up. See how it covers it? Now, the only issue with that is you're going to hit weird spots. Because it's even with each other, you're going to hit spots that are not going to be so great. So how I handle that is I pick one side to stay one way, and I pick the other side, and I intentionally overdo it on the end to start a pattern. So now we've got 2, and then as you can see, it's offset. So then we'll do 1, much like it already had here. Go ahead and chisel that, the lava. And then what we'll do is we'll do another gray gleam, and then we'll repeat the double. And you just mirror that same effect here. We'll do a simple gleam, a single, gleam, double. And that ensures that it's getting the coverage it needs into the middle and on all the edges. Alright, let's add lava and show you what we got. And look at that, 220. Now, combustion particles are something that can be found on permanent planets, not just exoplanets. So you'll probably end up with extra. And this is a great way, if you make like a little 3x3 growth pod, you can just grow your extra kernels that you get that you'd have no other use for. Or you can sell them. It's totally up to you. I like to grow them personally, and I make fuel for my furnace and for my spark generator. Alright, so now we need to get our substained sorted out. So we're going to use the deco block for lava. And I've already messed with this so much with my own build, and I've assisted in the one setting up his combustion farm that I already know it only takes 2. It takes 2 ancient corruptions, and that's it. You get 100% seed return or kernel, and you get 80% crop. There really is no way around that. Like, I literally spent a week trying to improve the numbers of the crop and still maintain a seed. But just to show you, even if you enter one of the combustibles, you drop to 80 because of that guy right there. So if you up that, then it starts dropping your crop growth because that's even worse. So yeah, dropping it to 2 gives you 100%. If you go to 1, you're below sustainability. So 2 is your best bet. And honestly, just candy striping it is the best thing you can do. So I'll go ahead and show you a finished version of it. Alright, so here you go. 80% crop, 100% seed yield. And it's real basic. So your end cap is just going to be gleam or filler blocks. Just remember the gleam does affect its growth speed. And you're going to do ancient corruption, 2 filler blocks, ancient corruption, 2 filler blocks, and just literally same thing on the other side. Just rinse and repeat. And you can pretty much make this extend indefinitely with the same result. This one is going to be for the seeds. I'm going to use the Deco Refined Gravel, 6 lava, and we're going to maximize it out with however you say that word. I do know that it is a solidified version of petroleum, and it can only be found on tier 7 planets unless you manage to get some from somebody's shop. And you're going to pay an arm and a leg for it because it is used to make, I think it's one of the fertilizer devices for farming, and people treat it basically like liquid gold. Oddly enough, that's what real oil is treated like. Alright, so the goal is to get 105% in seeds and 0 crop, unfortunately. So let's do a dry run. Move the lava. We should be looking for 0 crop because it never shows the negative, and 75% seed. Alright, and that's what we got. And this is the pattern we used. Single in the middle, gleam off to the side to get that bump to growth speed. 2, gleam, 2, gleam. Insane. Alright, let's add the lava, verify our numbers. And there we have it. Now we're going to be doing the crop growth. And it's going to be 1 deco gravel, 6 lava, and we're going to use enriched combustion particle. This one is even harder and more expensive to get than the B one up there that we used in the seed run. Test run wise, we ended up with 25% seed, 200% crop. We're going to remove the lava to do our dry run and see what we got. 170% crop, 0 seed, and let's get our lava in there fast. See if we achieve the numbers we wanted. Absolutely. So there you have it, 200% crop, and the seed is a 25% yield. And you can see the pattern here, to there, to get the cap started. And then we're doing a 2, then 1, 1, 2. Just like the other one. And we're just flip-flopping the pattern so that it stays distributed evenly amongst the crops. Alright, on to the next. This one we are going to use our gravel, obviously, our lava, but instead of a full run of the B block, we're going to do 3. And that will give you 100% seed and 35% crop. I know the number is horrible, but it is sustainable. You will not lose out on any of your kernels and end up getting behind on it unless for some weird reason the crop just doesn't take. And I have had that happen once, and I'm not really sure other than maybe a bug, but I went back to it the next day to harvest and I had an entire section that just wasn't there. So that is a risk, unfortunately. I think I lost like 9 kernel masses, kernels of the kindling mass to that. But luckily enough, I'm not hurting for it. Alright, so 100% seed, 35. Let's get rid of the lava to do a dry run. And we're looking for 5% crop, 70% seed. Alright, and that's what we got. So how I set it up was 2 gleam, 1, 1, 2, and just repeat that down the lane. Up here at the top we got 1 by itself, 3 gleam, and that's just to get it going. 2, then 1, and then we'll do 1 of the B block, and then we'll do 2 gleam and 2 of the B block, and just keep the pattern going. Don't be afraid to go outside of the setup if you need to, like 1 extra block somewhere, just in order to even it out. That's why the dry run's there. You don't have to worry about fighting with the lava, and you can finagle until you get the numbers that you want. I can't reiterate that enough. Alright, let's get our lava in there and look at our numbers. And we've got 35% crop yield and 100% seed yield. Sustainability achieved. Alright, so goo is going to take a little bit of finagling time, and honestly, there's a lot of aspects to it that I don't know, and I don't really care to know, only because I don't foresee myself utilizing it in that way. So what I do know is, out of the things that you can plant it in, I prefer to plant it in sponge if I'm wanting to produce pigment. and in regular Gleam if I want to mutate the colors. So what that does is, to mutate the colors, I use regular Gleam, and then I use growth all around it. So give it that, and that generally gives me a 90% chance to get a goo seed in return. It's not the max by any stretch of the means, because to be honest, I'd have to use rock. Rock limits its growth speed, and it doesn't help it by that much. So I'll show you what I mean. You only get 5% more, and it slows it down considerably. So I tend to use raw Gleam. As you can see from the chart, the crop bonus it gives you from using Gleam doesn't apply because that growth just absolutely tanks it. But regular Gleam gives it a 5%. If you really want to make it go fast, you could use a lantern instead of the unrefined. I don't know how fast. I'm struggling to get all the colors, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a few minutes. So regular Gleam is my personal preference. Finagle with the numbers as you see fit, whatever works for you. So there's that. So when growing the pigment itself and not trying to get color combinations through mutations, I use sponge to grow it in. And then I've got lava near it, right? That's all I do. As you can see, that gives me a 350% crop percentage. And a chance, little sliver of a chance to get a kernel back. I'm not stressing it though. My goal right now is to catalog the various combinations of Gleam versus goo colors to get colors that have not shown up from exoplanets, and obviously you can't get that color without being on an exoplanet, and color combinations of stuff that hasn't shown up. They're worth more, but I'm not going for that. I'm going for just the pure knowledge of it. I am creating a interface for the Twisted Crew gaming community that will allow them to just use a basic drop menu, select the color they want, and they know which Gleam they need for it and what color goo they may need in order to get that combination. And hopefully that means that they can generate it in bulk so they can paint with it as much as they want. So, all for science. So now I'm going to show you kind of what I'm talking about. So this is my color room. And with the patch, I totally rebuilt my workshop and my underground farm. The above ground farm looks identical to what it used to, but I introduced oat into the circulation and got rid of my secondary wheat field. But yeah, the workshop itself has changed. So the color room, close that up, now looks like this. Got the pigment processor here. No coils for it yet, but that's okay. That comes with time. And all of these will be filled with each color Gleam as I can get my hands on them, and the goo that matches that color. The chest underneath will sport the pigment that I have in storage as a result. So you can see there's going to be a bunch of like one-offs, and that's just where it did an odd mutation. And then the controlled results I catalog as the surefire color result from the goo and gleam combination. And I have all 255 colors of the game's palette reserved. The glass represents a missing gleam color. If the section is empty, like that one there, that means I'm actively using it in one of my growth rooms. So yeah, that's what this craziness is. It helps me stay organized and know how much I'm actually missing. Alright, so let's go look at the color room. Growth rooms. Speak English! Alright, so here's the first one. And you can see there's 2 more doors down there. Alright. So what I did here, I'm using Vivid Moss. And it's a full block. Don't let the optical illusion fool you. It is a full block. Goo that I'm utilizing is Silk Mint. See that there? It says Tint, Silk Mint, Torch, Vivid Moss. Right? And you see, you might not be able to see. Crop yield is at 0%, seed yield is at 90%. So I have a 90% chance that it's going to mutate and give me a goo kernel as a result. And then the results, I've looked at the majority of them and they all say stale moss. Like here's a one-off, warm yellow. Let me see if I can spot another one-off here. Here we go. I got warm moss out of it. Now when you see that, it worries me because one-offs are the ones that tend to not give you a kernel or result. So it may be, ooh, whoa, a slime. Anyway, so they're the ones that tend to not give you anything in result. So there is the growth, and what I did is I chiseled it in half into a slab so that it's recessed, so I can change out the gleam a lot easier and not worry about hitting the growth instead. It also keeps it from spider webbing and trying to consume the block next to it, so it cleans it up a little bit. Alright. Next room, same setup, cataloging. Next room, same setup, cataloging. Right. So here's the growth room. This is where I'm intentionally just growing pigment. And I haven't started growing any yet because there isn't one that I have in an abundant that I feel comfortable doing that with. So you can see I've got 4 blocks of sponge, gleam on each corner. That affects its growth speed. So stone, and you can't see where the lava is, and that's intentional. I really am not a big fan of the glow that lava gives off, so I hid it. But I will bust out a few blocks and show you guys what I did. So we're gonna knock out this because it's easier to put back up than the other stuff. Create a little sand bridge here. Alright. And there you have it. So to quarantine it off a little bit, so you can see, there is the sponge. There's the gleam in the corners. I took a titanium chisel and knocked out just the corner of it. And 1 block over, so 2 blocks away from the sponge, I put a gully for lava in that. And I will explain why. I will not show you why. I will just explain it. Any block that touches the sponge will burn it if it's got lava in it. Now, the exception is for some reason the angles it does not apply. So that is why it is touching and the other ones are not. However, The only way I can explain this and have it make sense to some people is think of how hot lava is. If lava was poured into the center of a concrete block, it would warm it up. Regardless of whether it burned it up, it would warm it up so much that anything that touched it would burn, much like a cast iron pot. So sponge being a very delicate material, it would just dry all the moisture out of it and it would just crumble into dust. So hopefully that analogy helps you kind of understand why it behaves that way. So yeah, this is the back end of it and that wonderful obnoxious glow. Boop. And you can see I also hid the lava in my kindling mass farm. And I hid it for my combustion as well. You can kind of see the pattern up here, what I did for the top. But yeah, anytime that you cover up your lava when it comes to these underground crops, make sure you're prepared to throw some gleam in and try to hopefully make it look decorative, just to be able to give it the light that it needs to grow quickly. So yeah, I hope this was informative and that it helps you guys figure out what to do with yourselves when it comes to your farms and how big you need to make them or how small you need to make them. Alright, later.